Hello, ladies and gentlemen. MarauderEX, Chris Stollings here with some of my old friends, all veteran game journalists from back in the day. We all used to work together. Everyone, introduce yourself. Say hi.
I guess I'll go first. Hi, I'm Jeff Neuenschwander.
I'm Scott MacDonald.
And I'm Daymon Trapold.
And this is kind of a little podcast type deal. We talked about this forever ago, and we wanted to kind of do this. I don't even know what we would call this. It's just, I guess, all of us discussing interesting topics, both in and out of gaming, because this is kind of what we did for a career for a while, So it's kind of hard to break this habit. So what are all the topics that we're going to talk about? I had a list, and now I minimized the window to bring up all the recording stuff.
Well, I got a bit of a list right here. It's kind of see, I got a bit of a list here, and my list actually starts out with something I got in the mail recently. It was the Sims Complete Collection, which is the original Sims games with all the expansion packs with it. Very excited about that because I never had all the expansion packs, and for some reason I just randomly started losing all my discs, and now I can't find my original game.
Wow, I haven't played The Sims since... God, probably since it originally came out.
The last Sim game I played was SimCity. Like, the original.
Oh yeah, I played the one on the Super Nintendo back in the day, too.
Oh yeah, the SimCity game on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's actually one of my favorite games. Played it during probably around the time when it came, probably a little bit after when it came out. It was one of those things that was sort of tied together with my teenage years.
So who produced that? Was it done by EA or was it done by a third party? Or
well, I believe I don't know if it was published by EA at that time. It was still developed by Maxis. Well, I'm gonna double check that.
Because I've been looking into a lot of like the small publication things, like limited run games and indie box and things like that. So, odd, unique publishing versions of games are actually something I'm really interested in. So, might be a good way to jump on the Sims bandwagon and catch up on years of gaming that I've missed.
Well, it looks like it was published by EA in February of 2000.
Neat.
So what's your interest in going back to the first game in the series?
Because none of the other games in the series are good.
Okay.
Have you seen Sims 4?
No.
No, I haven't.
Did that one have the same like online always as like SimCity, the SimCity remake, and like Diablo and things like that, where you have
it had a lot of problems to it. I don't know if it had the always online thing that Sims 4 had, but it wasn't good coming out of the gate. There were a lot of issues there.
That's unfortunate.
Well, I think EA had a track record there for releasing, I don't know, broken products.
If there's one thing EA is good at releasing, it's half of a game.
Yeah.
Although I'm hearing good things about Battlefield 1.
Yeah, I did too.
So
yeah, a lot of people that I follow on YouTube, they are enthralled with Battlefield 1.
at the very least, there's an outlier. So
now,
yeah,
now I need to dig up my a copy of SimCity on the Super Nintendo. I kind of feel the need to play that now. So, yeah,
Well, you never got on the VC?
I don't know if it's on Virtual. I have to look into that.
It was on the Wii. I remember getting it.
Oh,
it must have been then.
yeah.
Although the last time I tried to play it on the Super Nintendo at my dad's house, I have to say I don't think it aged particularly well. Either that or I had a lot more patience when I was a kid.
Either option is entirely possible.
Or it could be a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else
yeah.
do we have on the docket? I know there was a very long list of things.
Well, actually, I was looking for a little help in trying to come up with some different characters or families at in The Sims. If you guys have any ideas.
Well, you could go like classic TV families, like Flintstones, Simpsons, Family Guy, the Brady Bunch, depending on how many Sims you actually want to create. Then you could go like the slightly darker route and go like the Donner Party, but I don't quite think you could do that with The Sims.
I don't know. You could lock them all in one room. At least you could do that in the old one, just like the way you could put them in the pool and then take the ladder out.
Oh, come on. That's mean.
Well, I said you could do it, not that you have to do it.
Let's see. Yeah, if you never played this, you should definitely at least check it out. It's a lot of fun. I've got a lot of good memories with this.
It's always fun learning about other people's, nostalgia games, like games that you played as a kid that other people may not have played. I actually was tweeting about that not too long ago. It's like, tell me a game that you're nostalgic about that I may not have played, and I would love to look into it. And I got so many responses of some of the games I've never even heard of. And so I've downloaded copies of them or purchased them on like Good Old Games or wherever I could find them. It's like, I'm going to give these a try. So,
what games did they suggest or say when they were when they commented?
I will have to look it up because I honestly don't remember most. Like the ones that I remember are the ones that I had already known. But there were a lot of mods as well. Like, a lot of people were suggesting mods for things like Doom, which I would never suggest looking into the modding community for that, because, like, one of the first thing that pops up is someone replaced everything in Doom with Tim Allen. Like all the enemies, all of the wall textures, the floors, everything, the sound effects, it's all just Tim Allen. And that is nightmare fuel.
Grunting?
Yeah, one of the weapons is him grunting.
No,
yeah,
oh.
that is nightmare fuel. And that's one of the tame ones. Like,
well, now we're gonna have to look it up.
Yeah.
There's a couple of hentai related ones that I have to say the people who put the effort into that's impressive, and also a little disturbing at the level of effort that they put into a mod of Doom. Like, some of those things, you just can't unsee. So, first thing we're getting off to is it's terrible.
Well, if I could add to that list of nostalgia games if you want to look into it, even though it's like impossible to find either one. But Snowboard Kids 1 or 2 on the Nintendo 64.
I played that back in the day. I had a friend who had, I think it was the first one, and it was actually really good.
Yeah, my best friend in high school had it, and that's pretty much all we played. I mean, for like 3 years straight was Snowboard Kids 2. And it shouldn't be as addicting as it is, because, I mean, you can't even steer half the time. Like, if you try to crouch and steer, you can't. It just doesn't work. And the controls are super clunky, and it is not a pretty game, but it's so good.
It's also surprisingly difficult. like the first few times I played it, I don't know, I played snowboarding games before, and what I was expecting was not the experience. Yeah, definitely. I don't know, is somebody vacuuming?
No vacuuming.
Huh.
Okay, so it's not just me hearing like white noise right there.
No.
We heard it too.
Weirdness.
Okay, well, I have one for the nostalgia list. When we came back from our last trip to my parents' house in Idaho, we grabbed a bunch of Super Nintendo games, and I played through Dino City again. If anybody's played that.
I cannot say that I have.
Aha! I win. So it's made by Irem, the developers of R-Type, oddly enough.
Okay.
And it's a side scroller, and you're a little kid and you ride around on a dinosaur, and the boy dinosaur punches and the girl dinosaur shoots these little arrow things, and it's just how to describe it. It's bizarre. It's sort of set in like a prehistoric
Theme park?
of sorts, yeah. And well, theme park, yeah, because there are roller coaster levels and there's a Ferris wheel, and then you end up in a desert and stuff. And there's this weird plot about trying to get this battery back from this gang that's never really fully explained. Oh, and at the beginning you get sucked into a TV too. So,
Oh, of course.
I guess it's a TV show, maybe.
Maybe?
I don't know.
It's super 90s.
Either way, it's really fun. It's short. It's only about 7 levels long, but it's definitely a unique experience. And then, even though it's marketed toward children, I would say it's actually pretty hard. I mean, the jumps are all narrow. There's very little margin for error, and it's pretty unforgiving. But yeah, you should check it out if you haven't seen it.
I'll look into it. Most of my nostalgia games are basically anything from the Saturn, so it's like, I can say it and people may have heard of it, but they've never played it, so it's like, I'm just kind of talking to myself now, so.
I had a Saturn, but we only had one game for it, and it was that terrible Magic Carpet game.
Oh god, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was it, and I hated it. I hated it so much. But our babysitter broke our PlayStation at the time, and I guess she just didn't understand that they were not the same thing, and replaced it with a Saturn, and it's the one and only game we ever had.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Saturn is like my favorite console of all time. Like, it's ridiculous how much I love that console.
That's so interesting to me, because I've had limited exposure to the Saturn, and I did not like it. I've yet to find anything on it that I felt I really had to play. And the few games I have really wanted to play are all $300+.
Yeah, that's the problem. The Saturn games are all, like, any of the good games are beyond expensive. Like, I'm kind of thankful I kept all the games that I have.
Yeah, that was smart on your end.
Yeah.
So, Chris, is there something going on your end? Because it seems like when there was that noise again, and it sort of, and when it was coming through, it was, your picture on Skype was had that box in there.
I don't know. Nothing's popping up in terms of
And you got
microphone
quiet
activity. Let me see. I'll move the mic and see what that does. And see if there's any problems with that. There probably will be problems with that, but There we go.
Yeah, for nostalgia games, most of them were it was either things on the Super Nintendo or like late 80s, early 90s PC games, because that's pretty much what we had growing up. We had a lot of shareware stuff. There were a few games that we actually got the full copies of, but mostly just shareware games on PC.
We had. Did anybody ever play? I think it was called "So You Want to Be a Hero."
No.
See, way back in the day, it was sort of in the same vein as King's Quest and Space Quest.
No, I don't recall.
All right, so I'm still the only person apparently who has ever played these games.
I haven't played it either.
Sounds good.
Definitely a new one for me.
I don't even know if you could play them on the PCs anymore, but I mean, did anybody ever play King's Quest or Space Quest?
I have played
Game Grumps play them.
Yeah, I've played a King's Quest. I could not tell you which one or however long it was, but I've played one.
Okay, well, to be fair, there was like a billion of them, so I don't know. I think if you could ever get your hands on a copy or play it, you should totally play So You Want to Be a Hero. I mean, it probably hasn't aged well, and it's probably impossible, but I remember when I was young, and I mean, that was one of the very few computer games we had, and I would play it for days and days and days and days and days. I mean, if you had to, like, you picked between, like, classes to start out your little character with, and you're trying to save this kingdom, and the battle system was so clunky, and you had to, like, click the right or left hand that you wanted to use, but we didn't have a mouse, and so you had to use, like, the tab and the arrow keys. And anywho, if you ever get a chance, you should look into it. It was a really neat game.
Another one I'll look into.
And Commander Keen.
Oh, Commander.
Everyone's played Commander Keen.
And you know Duke Nukem before all the booze and strippers.
Yo, yes. Where toothpaste was something you could collect.
Oh, man.
Did anyone like that last game, that last Duke Nukem game?
No.
I didn't even try it.
Me either.
Just watched other people suffer?
It's not that I had any problems with the content or anything like that. I just didn't have any interest in it.
Okay.
I'm just really bad at those kinds of games.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the original Duke Nukem 3D. It's like, okay, yeah, it's a little gratuitous, but that's a selling point at the time. But the new one that came out, it's like, I have zero interest.
So what else do we have for nostalgia games, since we're on topic?
Well, we got a couple of recent. Well, I'm not sure how recent one of them is, but a couple of game announcements that could inspire some nostalgia. You know, You got a couple of new Sonic games. You got a Wasteland 3 that was recently just funded on. I think the site they used was Fig. I believe it was the same one that they did that Double Fine did their crowdfunding for the new, was it Psychonauts? Was that the one that they did?
That sounds right.
And then there was a recent one by Rockstar Games in which they announced Red Dead Redemption 2.
No, I still haven't played Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I've played a little, but not enough to where I could say that, you know, I'm attached to the game. I can see why people are attached to the game, but I've not spent a lot of time with it.
I haven't, but that's mostly because I never had the consoles for it. So I had an excuse for never playing it.
Yeah, I guess we don't really have an excuse for not having played it, but I don't know. There's something about those gigantic open world games in which you can do anything that just, I don't know. They always fail to really draw me in. I don't know if it's the design or the gameplay or what, but it just never really appeals to me. I guess having the option to do so many things is overwhelming to me.
You're not the first person I've heard say that. That's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people dislike that genre. It's like, you can do so much, and it's too much. Like, point me in a direction, give me something to do.
Yeah, I need a little direction.
Yeah, I think really the only, I guess, open world game that I've finished was the original Infamous, and open world games are certainly larger than that these days.
I think as long as I have a map, I'm pretty good with getting around in open world games. Or, as long as they got some sort of way to show me, hey, you got some things over here you can do.
I don't know, the last really open world game I played was Fallout 3, and I had all the DLC for it, and I started doing the DLC. That by the time I came back to the main story, it's like, oh yes, I have, ridiculously powerful weapons and armor, and now the rest of the story is a joke. Whoops.
Oh, there was who's the guy that does the gamer poops on YouTube? I think it's Manslayer. He did one for Fallout 3, and in which his character was going around and all the NPCs were saying, "We don't have anything for you to do," and then his character just sort of frowned, and on the screen you see the words, "The moment you realize you've done everything in Fallout 3." Have you ever seen any of those videos?
I have not.
I haven't either.
No.
Okay, it's he doesn't do a lot of them, but when they do, they're interesting. They're pretty. I think they're pretty funny.
I have to check it out.
Let's see. So that's our. I guess that's our talk on Red Dead. How about Wasteland? You guys ever play Wasteland or Wasteland 2?
Nope.
I played Wasteland 1, not extensively, but one of my friends in high school was big into a lot of PC games, and Wasteland was one of the ones that was like, hey, guess what? You need to play this. And so I played it whenever I was hanging out with him. I really could not tell you anything about the game at this point because it's been so long, but I know it's one of those that I kind of lose a little bit of gamer cred for not playing, so I fully expect to take my...
I have to have gamer cred I have to play it in order to have gamer cred? Is that what...
It's one of those that, you get an extra...
I can't just have it on my Steam library and just look at it every now and then and think about wanting to play it?
You get 1 hole punched on your gamer card for just owning it, but you get 3 for actually playing it, so...
Oh, well, we should be fine for owning things then.
Yeah.
Our collection. It's a nightmare.
No, but do you get bonus points for owning the physical version?
Yes, you do.
Okay, well then we're definitely good there. We have plenty of cred.
We have an entire IKEA giant shelf of cred.
There's a site you should look into called Backloggery. It allows you to chronicle the games that you own, and it has like a progress guide of have you played it, have you beaten it, have you 100%ed it, that sort of thing. And it really puts into perspective how much people can spend on games and not actually play them.
Yeah, I try not to think about that, especially because, these last 2 months, there's a ton of games that Like, I just got Corpse Party on the 3DS and Yomawari on the Vita. I'll probably get around to those for Halloween 2040, by the looks of things.
Well, I often joke on my YouTube channel, it's like, this is my career and my retirement. I have more than enough games to play until I'm dead. So...
yeah.
If we didn't buy anything else at this point in our life, I'm still not sure we could beat everything we own now.
I'm not sure we'd even get through all the PS2 RPGs.
Ooh. And that was probably what... Well, actually, that was... Were they still, like, super long at that point, or...
Well, something like Suikoden or Wild Arms would be, yeah.
Yeah, you've got the Suikoden, Wild Arms. The Disgaea games can be forever long, depending on if you want to max it out. So...
Well, and it doesn't help that, at least here in Portland, we have some pretty good used game stores that have, like, go all the way back to, like, the NES and everything in between. And it's like a disease. We can't help but stop and browse, and usually that equals buying stuff that we just don't need, but want so bad.
It's like, I actually had to come up with a wish list of games. It's like, okay, these are the games, mostly because I don't have a ton of physical space. I was like, okay, I have to cut these 5 games from the list because I can't physically put them on my shelf.
That's when you just start stacking games on top of other games and sort of disregard your own filing system.
You can end up with a nightmare hoarder nest that people judge you for, but...
Yeah, they totally judge you.
Yeah.
To be clear, the house isn't a nightmare hoarder nest, but the game shelf
yes.
is a nightmare hoarder nest.
I swear I will not end up on a TLC, special about needing some sort of intervention. I promise.
I'm not sure we can make that promise.
Yeah, our friends really judge us.
Yeah.
I'm just glad digital games don't take up any physical space.
The only problem I have... Okay, well, one problem I have with digital games is I completely forget that I own them.
Yeah, I've been there.
I mean, unless I can physically see the cartridge or the disc, I have no idea what I have in a digital library. Just no idea at all. I mean, I guess it's a pleasant surprise when I boot something up, but...
It's probably a good thing that we only have those 2 games on Steam.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun if you, like, buy things from, like, the Humble Bundle, and then you realize, oh, I already have a copy of this, and that, and that, and that. I just bought 5 games that I already owned.
But now they're on Steam. Or they were on Steam, and you got them from Humble?
Well, that's the thing. It's like you can get if some of the Humble Bundles, you can get them on other platforms, but most of the time it's, would you like a Steam copy of this game? Yeah, I already have it. So I just end up adding it to my, like, gift list so I can just give them out to other people because I already have multiple copies of it.
Oh, so Wasteland. We were talking about that. What's so great about Wasteland?
It's apparently Fallout before Fallout. It was created by the same guys who created that series. They created Wasteland, but then it got bought by... Who bought the original Wasteland? I can't remember. Somebody bought it, and then they decided to... And then they went on to create Electronic Arts. That's who published it. And they couldn't get to it to create anymore, so they just created Fallout. And they went with that series, and then eventually when they left Interplay, I guess is who yeah, when they left there, or maybe they get bought out by there. I don't know the details, and they left there and eventually went to created In Exile, I think is what happened.
Yeah, I think
Something like that. They created In Exile Entertainment, and they did a number of games there. And eventually they talked to EA and said, hey, do you mind if you guys have a thing that we created way back then. Do you mind if we create a sequel to it? And through some talking, they were like, sure, go ahead. And they created Wasteland 2. And now they're creating Wasteland 3. And eventually they're going to get around to releasing Torment Tides of Numenera in full. And eventually they're going to release The Bard's Tale 4 at some point.
You don't sound convinced.
Well, the thing is that, and it's something that back at the old site, I would just say, like, it would be something where you look at a team where they crowdfunded something, and then they start crowdfunding another thing before that first thing is even out yet.
Yeah, you get a Mighty Number 9 complex.
Yeah, you get a Mighty Number 9 thing, but these guys, yeah, they have a history of doing something like that, but they also are able to actually put out good content. Wasteland 2 was considered good, so they have a precedent for doing that while still crowdfunding other things at the same time. I'm hopeful for all three of those games.
I think crowdfunding is going to be really big for the next couple of years. I'm waiting for the bubble to burst on it, though. I'm expecting, like, Mighty Number 9 was already kind of a thing. It's like it left a really bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So something a little higher profile than it failing, I think is going to probably be a real turning point for.
Well, I don't know how much higher profile you can get from the guy who is considered the father of Mega Man just making a mess of his crowdfunding campaign.
I was always really concerned that Star Citizen was going to be that thing.
Oh, that too. I forgot about that. Is that even out yet?
Parts of it are out. They're releasing it in sections because they've realized that it's become kind of a feature creep problem. Like, they keep wanting to add stuff to it. So they're just releasing things as the features are finished. So parts of it are out, which I guess still allows them to say that they are doing. But the thing is, they're still developing it. So the fact that it's still being worked on and they're still releasing updates for it kind of gives hope, but I don't think. I don't know what percentage.
But the crowdfunding for that thing has already surpassed 100 million.
Yeah. But like I was very worried that Star Citizen's like it's gonna flop and like that's gonna be just the end of crowdfunding altogether.
What about Shenmue 3? Wasn't that crowdfunded too?
Yeah, but that had issues too.
Yeah, and part of the issue was that the crowdfunding was just to see how interested people were, to see how much money Sony was going to throw at it.
Oh, okay.
And there were also some issues of, we could make the game at this price point, but if you get it to this price point, we could actually make the game that we really want to make. And a lot of people were sort of rubbed the wrong way about that.
Yeah.
Well, that does sound a little. This isn't quite the right word, extortion-y, though.
Well, I mean, the first two Shenmue games, when they were made, they were the most expensive games made. Like, they were just ridiculous in terms of cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see the the development of, hey, if you give us this much money, we can make this, because that was kind of their MO from the start. It's like, give us this much money, we can make the game we really want to make, as opposed to the game that we ended up having to make because you stopped giving us money.
Well, it's one of those crowdfunding traps you got to be careful of when you go into places like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, or even when Wasteland 3 is Fig, where if you get a developer saying, yeah, I can make the game at this, but hey, if you give me this much, I can give you this, and sometimes they'll come through, and then sometimes they will say, well, we ran out of money and we couldn't deliver that, or we tried to but we couldn't.
Yeah.
And then hide behind things like Kickstarter's policy, where it's the developer or campaign people have to at least try to make an effort to do what they promise.
Yeah, some sort of the good faith argument.
I mean, some people. I mean, there's some developers out there. They tried to do it. They couldn't get it on time and release, but then they still keep adding on to it, like Yacht Club games with Shovel Knight, where they just kept adding on to it. Are they still adding on to it? Because I think they're still like half their stretch goal list. I think they still need to get through.
I think they have another expansion or two to go.
Yeah, I know they announced they did Plague of Shadows, and I think they've announced another one. I don't remember which one it was though.
Oh, the Propeller Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was him, and then I think there was supposed to be one with Shield Knight, too. Or it was a gender reversal thing or something. I can't remember all the details. Josh Spear would know.
Quick, someone get Josh on Twitter. But I mean, I have to say, like, I've funded several things on Kickstarter. Like I did the Pure Solar HD. I kickstarted. I helped fund that. Battle Chasers. I've kickstarted that one. BattleTech. I've kickstarted to it twice. Or I've backed that one twice. And Bloodstained. I've backed that one. So like I've spent a fair share on projects, and so far I haven't, regretted it. So
it looks like they got two campaigns that they're working on: Spectre Knight and King Knight.
Oh.
It looks like Spectre Knight's coming first. Let's see, when was this update? This was back in June when they announced this. It looked like. You said there was one there. That there may have been one for Propeller Knight?
I thought there was, not. But maybe I'm wrong.
I have to dig up the original, Kickstarter for Yacht Club games.
Yeah.
I don't see anything on their Kickstarter updates. It could have been somewhere else where they said that.
Or we're making it up. That's a possibility.
That too. I mean, eventually they gotta get all the bosses working right for their battle mode.
Yeah,
because that was their big stretch goal at the end.
I'm kind of curious how
there was a gender swap mode that they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Anyways, you're saying?
No, I'm just curious how long they're gonna keep pumping time and resources into it before they make another game. I mean, it seems kind of risky to keep riding on the coattails of your one success.
Well, do we know how much money they actually made from the game? Or the Shovel Knight amiibo?
Not a lot. I remember.
Did any of you get the Shovel Knight amiibo?
I did.
We have it.
Yeah, we have it.
Okay.
And I guess they are getting into publishing too, so...
Yeah.
Have they published anyone else's game? Or?
Yeah, they did that Azure Striker Gunvolt.
Oh, they published that one?
Yeah,
Was not aware.
the physical version.
Huh.
Yeah, that's the only one they've done so far. List of developed games: Shovel Knight, Plague of Shadows, Shovel Knight Spectre of Torment. So yeah, that's really all they've got.
That's interesting. Well, I hope they have ideas for other things, because I really don't want to see a developer who created such a great game go fall off, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only time will tell.
Well, who knows? Maybe they got other things that they do besides Yacht Club games, since there's apparently only 5 people working there. Or maybe just 5 regular people, and then they just hire out for all the other stuff. They contract to other people.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the indie development scene is really all over the place these days. I was reading up on Dust and Elysian Tale, and it was mostly developed by one person. And by the time he got close to done with it, it's like it was being picked up by publishers, and he's contracting out to finish up, music and animation and things like that. But the bulk of the game was one person. So.
Ooh, speaking of games that were created by pretty much one person, did either of you play Stardew Valley?
No.
I haven't played it, but I've read a lot about it.
I haven't played it, but I've watched so much of it on YouTube.
There's supposed to be a Wii U version this year, so I was kind of waiting for that.
I was not aware of that.
Yep, coming to Wii U.
Yep.
Yeah, basically they basically did a Harvest Moon, and they did it better than the what is currently called Harvest Moon.
Yeah.
It certainly looks that way.
I enjoyed it. The Bachelor and Bachelorette characters most of them seem a little wooden, mostly.
So like Harvest Moon?
Uh,
Well, not that anybody's playing Harvest Moon for its storytelling.
Yeah, I went back and started playing the SNES Harvest Moon, and
it's aged horribly.
it has. But it's still adorable. It's just
yeah.
You've got all of like 5 things to do.
Yeah, and then you go up to something like Story of Seasons, and just feels like they're. Well, I guess it still feels like, if you boil it down to it, it still feels like there are 5 things to do, but it just feels more complex.
Yeah. Those 5 things take 10 times as long.
Yeah.
But no, I was actually waiting for the Wii U version. I was thinking about picking it up. It was on one of the Steam sales, and then right after I noticed it went on sale was when they announced that the Wii U version, and they're like, "Oh yes, we're also going to bring some tablet support and off TV play, and all the things that actually make Wii U versions of things kind of interesting." So I'm like, I will wait for that.
Speaking of ports, I'm keeping an eye on the Little King Story port to PC. I know there's a lot of people that are not happy with how that released.
I heard a lot of bad things about that.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because it's a fun little game.
We haven't played. We have it on the Wii. We just haven't gotten around to playing it yet.
I've played it. I made it about halfway, and then just sort of started playing something else.
So what happened with this release?
It was just a very buggy release, and just a lot of people were really that happy with how it released, and they've been trying to patch it over the last couple months. I'm actually waiting to see what they're going to patch in this month. They haven't done anything about it, or at least they haven't posted anything about it this month. I mean, you assume that they would be with something the way that it released, they would still be working on it.
You'd hope so.
And I kind of have to feel sorry for Xseed there, because they're basically taking the brunt of the angry comments, and I don't know if they really can do much of anything because they're just a localizer. I mean, it's Marvelous is the one that takes care of developing the games, and they got to take care of editing and updating and all that, and they just have to, unfortunately, sit and take it. Pretty much.
Yeah, I saw Total Biscuit did a video about it, and then a lot of tweets about it, and
about this particular release.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that he'll be brutally honest about it, but he'll still try to find something positive to say if there's a positive. And he's just like, I just can't with this one. I really just can't.
Was that in reference to how it released, or the reaction to the release? Or
that was he wanted to make sure it was very specific that was the problems he was having with his specific copy, and he was like, I don't know if it's my computer, I don't know if it's, there's something wrong, but just all of the problems with the release. He basically just chronicled an entire error sheet of things that he had encountered that went wrong with trying to play it.
Well, you think with someone of his YouTube stature, his PC probably wouldn't be the issue for that. That's
what he prefaced it with. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not the case, but he's had issues where it's like he just had, a driver incompatibility that was not really the developer's fault or the publisher. It was just, one of those little things that, a small fix, a small change fixed major issues. But in this case, it was just he gave it the benefit of the doubt, but he's like, I'm pretty sure this is not, a driver fix issue.
Speaking of drivers, there was a game I got on Steam a couple months ago, and it was something from like 2010, I want to say. And I started playing it. Well, I didn't even get to playing it. I downloaded it and installed it, and it wouldn't let me play unless I had games for Windows Live.
Ooh.
Wow.
Which is something you're not supposed to need for games on Windows 10, or at least it's not. They have an updated thing that's gone beyond games for Windows Live. But apparently this game needed it. And it was an EA game. Of course it was an EA game.
Of course.
And I couldn't play it. Because it needed outdated software.
I wonder if it was one that just happened to fall through the cracks or something.
I don't know, would Bulletstorm fall through the cracks?
Bulletstorm fell through a lot of cracks. I know someone who worked at a game store who completely forgot that Bulletstorm released the day it released.
Really?
Yeah.
Oops.
It's like, oh, right, this is a thing.
That seems odd, because with how big and over the top that game was, it seems like that would be one of those games you don't really forget about.
You'd be surprised. I worked at GameStop for a while, and there's always just so much coming through.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the pre-digital era.
So what's else on our
So yeah, there's
list of things?
There was Sonic. I don't think anyone here is too excited about it.
I would be more excited, but I still have a hatred of Sega.
Yeah,
so.
you have reasonable hatred for Sega.
I was actually talking to someone about that on one of my live streams. I'm like, if Sega were just to just say they were sorry, because they issued a non-apology way back when all that happened, and it was just kind of like the most PR speak. We're sorry, not sorry. It's like if they just even if it's like the Novelty Sonic Twitter account just said, "We're sorry that we were douchebags," I would be first in line to buy the collector's edition, because I really kind of want the collector's edition of Sonic Mania. It is adorable.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Right.
It looks great. It looks like it's gonna be great.
I'm kind of excited for it. So that I can play it in 15 years or so.
The only thing that bothers me about the collector's edition of that is that it does not, in fact, have a physical copy of the game. You get a
Yeah, I
card
thought that was
back.
weird too, and the price point makes that.
Seem a little odd.
Yeah, it's
Frustrating.
kind of inexcusable, really.
Well, how much is the collector's edition?
It's like $70 or $80.
Yeah, I want to say it was like
Whoa.
79.
Yeah.
So it's like 79 for everything. Well, the thing is, though, it's like a metal card with the digital code on it, and the code is repeatable. So it's like you can use it. Supposedly, it's like if you get it on like a PlayStation, it just again it links to your PlayStation network. But I'm pretty sure someone was telling me that it works for other platforms as well, depending on how you get it. I don't know. There was a lot of you should be able to use it for life. I'm like, I don't know how that seems a little weird, but
Yeah, you're right. I will be using it for my life, but
but yeah, I love the collector's edition for it, and from what I've seen of the game, I would really enjoy playing it because I love the old school Sonic games. But I'm just still very apprehensive about, like, I have a friend who got very, very mad at me that I'm not picking up Persona 5. And she was like, "Why are you not doing that?" It's like, because Sega's publishing it. I love Atlas to death, but I can't buy this game and not have a fraction of that money go to Sega. That's just, and I'm like, it sucks for me because I'm not going to get to buy it. But
That does suck. We have that crazy Ultra edition pre-ordered, and we're probably buying a PS4 just for that.
it's like it looks like a fantastic game. I just know that.
Okay, so Chris, you and Sega, what's going on?
Oh, you haven't heard this story?
they flagged a few of his video, or did they actually strike your videos, or was
They actually issued copyright strikes, which are at the time, if you got 3 copyright strikes on YouTube, they shut your channel down. Which my channel was actually shut down for, because they hit me with 3 in less than a 24-hour period.
Yeah, wasn't it just so that they could? It was a whole big thing over many different channels, mostly for just like search engine things for like a Shining series game announcement, wasn't it?
That's the current running theory. There was never really like a reason stated. There was nothing's ever come to light as to why it happened. But they targeted a lot of things for the Shining series, mostly like Shining of the Holy Ark and Shining Wisdom. and they hit, like, they shut down my channel. They flagged Total Biscuit's videos, and he went on the warpath with them. But I know, like, 3 people who had their channel shut down because of it. And then the theory was that it was to raise the search rankings for a new Shining game that wasn't even going to come out outside of Japan. And then when it was brought to light that some of the videos that were targeted were falsely targeted because Sega didn't own any of the copyright in those particular videos. They just had Shining series as part of the search engine results. That's when it seemed like they backed off. And they issued a non-apology, and they fixed some of the channels, but they didn't fix all of them. Like, I have a friend whose channel is still suspended, and he's gotten no response from Sega about it. So, but yeah, Total Biscuit issued a boycott on all of their content. And he's like, I'm never gonna cover their stuff again until they fix everything that they did. And to this day, he still hasn't covered anything. I was actually looking at it this morning just out of nostalgia's sake, because it was about 3 years ago around this time.
Wow, what a PR nightmare.
Oh, it's... The problem was, Sega is such a splintered company. You've got Sega of Japan, Sega of Europe, and Sega of America that are all kind of independently functioning, but Sega of Japan is the head honcho. But, like, they'll do things that kind of directly contradict good business practices in the other regions just because they want to. It's a very poorly organized company at the moment. So
you think they would know better by now, because if you read about the Saturn's history, a lot of the problems they had with the Saturn was due to the company being splintered like that.
The Saturn and the 32X both, because that was Sega of Japan and Sega of America directly competing against each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you'd think Sega would have learned from these mistakes, but, you know, history has a habit of repeating itself.
Well, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Exactly. I mean, Sega was actually doing pretty well there for a couple of years. I thought they were actually, you know, digging themselves out of whatever hole they crawled into. But every time it seems like they take a step forward, they seem like they take a step back too. So,
well, I think on the game end at the moment, I think they're learning from Atlas and learning some positive things from Atlas. Like Sonic Boom Fire and Ice. I mean, wasn't it originally scheduled to release late last year?
Yeah.
And I don't know how it ended up. I think a lot of people said it seemed very competent, although I think there were still some issues with it, that there were more design choices rather than the technical ability of the end product.
Yeah.
But basically, they took a whole year to just work on that thing and make sure that it wasn't going to be the bomb that Rise of Lyric was.
That was the thing.
But I'm hopeful that before Sonic Mania comes out, they say something. Like, I occasionally tweet at the Sonic novelty account, like, please tell me you're not douchebags anymore so I can buy your stuff. I would really like to buy your stuff. Because I saw a lot of the new stuff for Sonic Mania. They showed off a new level and the Tails and Knuckles gameplay, and I'm blown away by how much effort they're putting into this. Like, it's the new level is like a Wild West, you know, desert themed level, which is kind of based off of like 2 previous Wild West desert themed levels almost exactly. But they're like, we're actually finally going to do it this time. So
this one's being led by Christian Whitehead, right?
Yep.
He was the guy who did the mobile ports, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
They did
That's
say
all I
there were
wanted to
going
say,
to be
that's
a lot more remakes of levels. So they're going to do like remakes of like Green Hill Zone and all the classic Sonic levels. They're doing revamps of those. But they're like, we are going to do some new levels as well, and they're going to be interesting.
I thought Green Hill Zone was already remade.
It was.
As Emerald Hill.
Well,
basically.
yeah. Well, so they've shown off Green Hill Zone, Studiopolis, and I forget the name of the Wild West Zone. But like Green Hill Zone is basically like a combination of Green Hill and Emerald Hill, because it's got the weird little sideways twisty loops as well as like the loop-de-loops and things like that from both games. But it's still very much Green Hill. Whereas Studiopolis is like inside a city with like television cameras and things like that. It's like Hollywood. It's really odd in the grand scheme of things. It's a very strange looking Sonic level, but probably not as weird as some of the stuff that was on like the Game Gear Sonic games, if you ever got a chance to play any of those.
Yeah, those were. I didn't play them on the Game Gear, but I played them on like those Sonic collection things where you have to unlock them.
Yeah. I was one of the kids that had a Game Gear. All of my friends had Game Boys. I had a Game Gear. So I had all of them.
Poor you.
Yeah. Like,
so how much money did you throw away by buying batteries?
see, I actually never used batteries. They had the wall AC adapter, and then they had a cigarette lighter AC adapter. And so it's like,
Okay, so you were fake portable.
yes. I was portable as long as there was an outlet nearby, which is basically how I am as an adult now. It's like I don't play games on my cell phone unless like I have a power source nearby, because like it just my phone battery lasts for all of like 30 seconds. So but yeah, I do remember one time I used batteries in the Game Gear, and it lasted for all of about 3 hours. And it took like 6 AA batteries. It's like,
What an investment.
but I could play games in glorious color.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
I never had the Game Gear, but my cousin did, and the only game he had, though, was the Lion King game, so that's what I played on it, but it was so pretty.
I
think-
lost count at how many games I had on it. So, but I loved it. Like, I really did. I spent more time playing it than my Genesis for a couple of years.
So yes, Sonic Mania. Having watched the few videos they have out for it, I'm generally pretty excited about it. The only thing that I worry about is I feel like Sonic, like many older properties, is sort of stuck in this perpetual purgatory between creating a product that gamers who grew up with it want and trying to attract new audiences. And I feel like they're integrating enough new features and tweaks in this that it might successfully appeal to both.
Well, it's probably an easier proposition for a 2D Sonic than for like a 3D Sonic to try to balance out your going for a little bit of nostalgia plus trying to reach new audiences, because for the 3D Sonic you have to deal with the Sonic Adventure crowd plus the crowd that doesn't really care much for the adventure games, and then as well as trying to reach out for new people. So you got like 3 different groups you got to appease.
Right, and I mean, at least the one thing that Sonic does have going for it is, having had a string of less than successful games, going back to the 2D version is basically a success in itself, I would think.
Well, let's not forget, it was pretty much just one bad 3D game that they had. Unleashed sort of gets a mixed reaction among the Sonic crowd, but is either considered average or considered pretty good by some people. It depends on what you think of the Werehog.
Mm.
But then you have Solid Colors, which most people consider to be a good Sonic game, and then you have Sonic Generations, which the Sonic Colors crowd likes as well, and then you got Lost World, which gets a bit of a mixed reaction, but I think it's good, or I think it can be good in most spots.
I always felt that Sonic, when he transitioned to 3D, they didn't know what they were going to do with him. Like, Sonic Adventure was an interesting transition, but you could see over the course of the games, it's like, they want the speed aspect, but you can't really have speed and, open world like Mario 64, because you traverse the world too quickly and things like that. So it's like they put them on rails, and it's like the Rails games really aren't 3D, but they kind of are. So it was just a very confusing time for Sonic.
Well, I remember doing an article about this at the old site where I pretty much said that they couldn't really. They seemed like they were a bit nervous about going full in on a full Sonic game, because it does feel like it was. It didn't seem like they had a lot of control with it. They couldn't really control his speed, and it didn't really feel like you could have the control with that until the daytime levels on Unleashed. I mean, Adventure just feels like you're a pinball, and pinball running around all the place, and some people like that. I don't. I think I felt a bit nauseous the first time I played Sonic Adventure, which is interesting because I actually played Adventure 2 first. But Adventure 2 had similar problems, but was probably a little bit more polished than the first game.
I don't think they've particularly aged well either, though.
Well,
I mean, I played the hell out of Sonic Adventure 2 on the GameCube, and I went back and tried to play it a few years ago, and I don't know, I guess it requires a different skill set or mindset, or I just am remembering it incorrectly.
Adventure 2, I think, is aged a little bit better than Adventure, primarily because Adventure 2, I don't think had... I think it's because Adventure 2 didn't have Big the Cat, so you didn't have this really big section of doing nothing.
I say fishing with quotation marks, because... I loved Adventure 1. I didn't really get into Adventure 2, but I loved everything about Adventure 1 except for Big the Cat. Just... no.
Yeah. I didn't play Adventure till a couple years ago, so keep that in mind when I say that, when I give my opinions on it. I didn't play it when it initially came out. I played it after good 3D Sonic games.
But yeah, I really think this is the way to go with Sonic, though. What they're trying to do, because you've got Sonic Mania, which is just basically the classic 2D speed through levels, learn multiple pathways, like classic Sonic, and then you've got the unannounced Sonic project that looks like Generations 2, but they've said specifically that it's not Generations 2. That looks like it's probably going to be more of a modern Sonic title. And I think that's kind of the way to go about it. It's like there's Sonic Generations was great because it kind of blended both, but I think Sonic could potentially have both styles of game, and that way you could cater to the old school audience as well as trying to find Sonic's 3D niche.
I'm just hoping that they don't try to jam in everyone back into it after they've gone on this run of good Sonic games, Mostly because I think they need to prove themselves in developing the other characters if they're going to bring them back in. I mean, it took them pretty much since they started. Since they started developing Sonic games, because the first 3D game was an isometric game called Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. It was an arcade game that was only out in Japan, and it used a rollerball. And that game never made it. I don't know, it might have made it over, but it never made it to consoles.
I'm almost positive it did not make it over.
Okay, it never made it to consoles, that I know. But they had a game called Sonic 3D Blast that was a similar gameplay style to Sega Sonic. And it really took until then... Well, it took until from then to Adventure to really understand how they want to do a 3D game with him, but it took until Unleashed, really, until they could understand how they wanted him to move in that 3D space.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think having it split between 2D and 3D is the way to go. And I think to a degree they already kind of have done that, because if you played any of the ones on the Game Boy Advance or the DS, they were pretty much strictly 2D affairs, and I mean, I thought for the most part they were pretty successful. The only problem with them was that I think they released too many of them in a short span of time, and they all kind of feel like the same game, which is one of my concerns with Mania here, because I mean, I'll probably enjoy it for the nostalgia factor, but it's still probably going to be Sonic at the end of the day, which is, you know, good or bad depending on how you view Sonic.
True.
Well, if you skip the Sonic Boom games, you haven't really played a 2D Sonic game until... you haven't played a true 2D Sonic game after... Oh, crap. What was the last 2D Sonic game that came out? Was it Sonic 4 Episode 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been like 4 years. Assuming you skipped the Sonic Boom games.
I didn't play any of
I'm
them,
pretty
so...
sure everyone has skipped the Sonic Boom games.
Which, yeah, speaking of those, perhaps it's better for them to keep Sonic in-house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think it's kind of weird that they licensed out one of their main properties to a third-party developer.
There was actually a really entertaining story about this on Game Grumps, of all things, because they played through Sonic Boom, and one of the things was, like, they made a joke at the very end, going through the credits, like, there was the QA people, the quality assurance people.
Quality assurance!
And apparently one of the quality assurance people actually messaged them and, like, yeah, this was just a mess from day one. It's like, we told them that these issues were here, and we were told some of them would be addressed on time, some of them would have to be patched later. Very few of them were actually addressed at all. Like, he was just like, we knew this was a problem. It's like, the problem was, it's like, apparently Big Red Button was not equipped to deal with a game of that scale. And Sega was like, oh no, you're totally equipped to deal with a game of that scale. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not. Can we get some assistance? Like, oh, here's some assistance. And it wasn't what they needed. It was a lot of miscommunication between the companies, and just not a good day for anyone involved. But I love that story got told on Game Grumps. Like, one of the actual developers was like talking to, you know, these guys on the internet. It's like, yeah, there's only so much we could have done. Like,
well, at the very least, we know Sonic Team can make a good game when they're actually tasked to make the game. So,
Yeah, I wonder what they're doing instead of making it.
probably working on Project Sonic.
Oh, yeah, maybe that one is theirs.
Yeah.
Because after all, it's created by the team that did Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations, but mysteriously does not list Lost World or Unleashed. Or Sonic 06, so though I think those guys are probably long gone by now.
Probably.
So do we want to get into Nintendo Switch now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so was it last week when they announced this?
Yeah.
Okay, so last week, as of this recording, Nintendo released a trailer for what we knew up until last week as Project NX, which would be their upcoming console. And what were the rumors coming into this thing? Because some of the rumors were like it would be a hybrid home and portable, but nobody.
A lot of the rumors were kind of addressed. It's like it's going to be a console tablet hybrid. It's going to use cartridges. I think one of the weird controllers was even mentioned. So
in the rumors beforehand,
yeah.
Okay, so this is what we saw in just the trailer itself. You saw. Well, first thing it opened with was Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which was something we already knew was going to be coming to NX as well as Wii U. So not really a big surprise for anyone unless you didn't know that was coming to the new console.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you saw was, well, other than the dog come in and try to get his master to take him out for a poop walk, was the guy taking the sides of the controller off and connect him to the screen and connect him to the console that was sitting in this docking station that is also a charger at that point.
Yeah, the docking station is the video output and charging station.
Is there like a HDMI thing that it gets plugged into when it's in the docking station?
Yeah.
Okay. Did they ever say if it was going to be something that you could charge away from the station?
I don't think so.
I don't think they've mentioned it, but there was some talk on Twitter afterwards that there's a way to charge away from the station, like it has the AC. I don't know if that's confirmed. That's the problem. A lot of the information that's being discussed, because Nintendo's not saying anything specifically, it's all still speculation.
Okay, because that would be one of my big issues if it didn't have that, because it seems like something, if you're going to take it portable and you're going to be away from the docking station for a while, especially if it's not a very long battery life,
yeah,
you would need a way to plug it in somewhere.
I can't imagine that it won't have some sort of means of charging without the dock. Like that just...
Yeah. So yeah, you had the sort of breakaway controllers that go on the side of the console. You pick it up, and it's sort of like pretty much the Wii U gamepad.
Yeah.
Where you have the controllers where you have your buttons on the side and your screen in the middle. And yeah, it's, as you said, it's going to be cartridge based. Which, whatever, it works. I mean, I have no issue if it's card based, CD based, or Blu-ray based. I have no issue either way on that, as long as they just get the game to me. Some things that you would see that were interesting for one of the things that was interesting for when it's portable, has a kickstand for when you just want to put it on a table or when you're away from the docking station. so you can play it. So you can take the controller and not have the screen, not have to hold the screen all the time. And it looked like when you were playing it, at least away from your TV, you could have like 2 people per screen. It looked like, at least on the NBA 2K game that was being shown.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
It looked like some sort of local play, like if you had 3DSs meet and they're playing each other, and well, similar to the 3DS thing where they have a couple consoles right by each other, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there were some interesting things for the games that were being shown. I believe they showed Skyrim on there, but Bethesda didn't confirm anything about that.
Well, Bethesda said that it wasn't Skyrim. It was something that they put together to show that they are supporting.
Yeah, some sort of Elder Scrolls-like thing in there. But it was also interesting that you say that it was something. It wasn't Skyrim, but it was something that just showed that they were supporting it. Well, the Mario Kart thing. It was very interesting when you paused the video and actually looked at what was on the screen during Mario Kart, because you showed one race. There was one racer per car, 2 items per racer, and King Boo was there. The last time King Boo was in this was in Mario Kart Wii. Wasn't the 2 items thing primarily just a double dash thing, or?
So.
I
Yeah.
thought you could do it in the 64 version too. You could hold one and then pick up another.
Well, yeah, but it's not quite.
Well, it's a little more complicated in that sort of thing where you have to have the bananas trailing right behind you or the shells spinning around you, and then you can have one that's sort of and then have one sort of in the mystery box, and they'll come up. But there was 2 in the box right there on the screen.
Yeah, I didn't notice that either.
Which was very interesting, in that I don't think they actually have ever had that in any sort of Mario Kart game. I'm not saying that they're going to do that, but it's very interesting that they would, if they were putting up a mock Mario Kart thing for it, that they would actually put that in there.
Well, yeah, because I'm sure they know that everyone ever will watch it in slow motion and catch those details.
Well, I didn't even catch it until I was watching. Do either one of you watch the Far From Subtle on YouTube?
No.
Okay, they have a couple of shows. One that's been sort of dormant, but they're trying to come up with a new season 4 called Awesome Video Games, and then they have a sort of Let's Play one where they sort of mix around the names for it, and they call it Video Games Awesome. And for it, they have and within Video Games Awesome, they have a segment called Show and Trailer. And they were playing the trailer, and one of the guys pointed out that pointed all these things out in the Mario Kart section. I didn't even notice that when I watched it the first time, but he was pointing all these things out. I was like, holy crap.
Makes me wonder what other stuff I missed.
I saw a lot of post-analysis. There were a lot of people who took the 3-minute video and dissected it to 30, 45 minutes. So I've seen a lot of the analysis. I haven't seen that one in particular, though.
Let's see. There was there was another thing where they sort of did some changes to a game that they have, Splatoon. When apparently when the characters showed up at the end when they're starting their big battle in front of the CGI crowd, I guess, because there's no way you could have that many people show up for any sort of esports sort of thing at this point. And you saw the characters pop up, and it looked like and from what I understand, they had different hairstyles than what they typically have in the normal game. I don't know if they had different weapons, but they said that they had different hairstyles.
Yeah, they said that there was different hairstyles for the characters that aren't available in the game at the moment. So, and since they've said that they've already finished all of the stuff for it for the Wii U version, it's making people wonder, it's like, is it going to be an enhanced port, or is it going to be a sequel, or was it just, random video footage that...
Something they threw together just for this.
Yeah.
Like with the 3D Mario thing.
Yeah.
Is it actually a 3D Mario that they're working on, or is it something that they just threw together because they needed a Mario game to show off during that point?
I mean, I can see a lot of the things. Like, why would they take the time to make these videos if you're not going to do something similar for it? But at the same time, like, Nintendo's being really tight-lipped about it. It's like, we're not saying... And they're not saying anything until, what, January?
They showed a lot during the Wii U reveal trailer when they showed it off in 2011. A lot that they did not really back up. I'm having trouble recalling what exactly made it into the final product. I think the video chat was one of the things. The new Super Mario Brothers U was another. That golfing thing where they was there actually a Wii Sports U golf thing on there?
I think there was, but I don't think it worked the way that they were showing it. Like, I remember on the Wii U reveal, like, they had the tablet setting on the ground, and then they were using, like, the Wiimote over it, which seemed ridiculous to me. Cause, like,
I thought it was actually pretty cool.
It was interesting, but I was like, how were they going to get it to work? Because, like, there is a camera on the Wii U tablet, but... Like, they don't have... It's just one camera, as far as I know. I'm trying to look at my tablet from here, and it's like, is there... Because I'm pretty sure it's just one. So it's like, how would it register the infrared...
Well, it had the gyro things going on, so you could like lift it up and turn it around, and it would be able to register that way.
Well, yeah, I'd be able to register, but like when they were using the Wiimote as like the golf club, it's like I was wondering how the two were gonna be able to interact properly. I couldn't figure out how that was actually gonna be a thing when they first showed it off. It's like I don't know. It's very weird. Like.
Well, I thought it was just something to like show your spot and maybe look up and see what the lie looks like in front of you. That's how I thought of it on there. I didn't even think about that sort of interactivity between the remote and the gamepad. So
yes, I guess we should be reserved about our expectations.
I mean,
most of the stuff that they showed was just how the system would work, and you'd figure they wouldn't actually show that unless they could actually make that work. You would hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, I mean, everything that they showed was basically like the system as a console and the system as a portable, and then all of the various control schemes that they're already working on, which all of those seem like they don't require anything weird. Like they don't need, like I was saying, the weird interaction between the Wiimote and the tablet for the Wii U. All of these are like, this is just a controller. Controllers work. We know controllers work.
And the games were just the things that they would show how the control would show, just because you need something on the screen to show. So throw up a mock Mario Kart thing, throw up a mock Elder Scrolls thing to show that Bethesda's in with this, throw up a mock NBA 2K thing to show that 2K Games is in on this, throw up a mock Mario thing because it's Nintendo, throw up Legend of Zelda because everyone knows it's coming to it. Throw up Splatoon because that's the new hotness for them.
one of the things that really bothered me about the conversations going on, everyone was saying, oh, it's not going to have enough power because, as you saw in the reveal, it had the same stuttering and slowdown and frame drops. And my initial response is someone who, like, I have just a very cursory level of video editing skills, but even I'm sitting here going, the footage, that wasn't live footage, guys. You can't, have you ever tried to record a screen with a camera? It doesn't look that pretty. That's, like, I swear those actors are looking at a blank screen, and that was stuff that was edited in after the fact. Like, they're just using pre-done footage after the fact. Like, that's not, those screens aren't active. I can almost promise you that's not what they're looking at. Like,
I will at least give Nintendo this. They actually showed the console this time during the reveal.
Yeah.
They never did that during the Wii U reveal in 2011.
I want to say
all it was just the controller.
Yeah, I want to say on the only time you saw the actual console and the Wii U reveal was the very end, and it had out of a 3-minute video, it had less than 10 seconds of screen time, so no one paid any attention to it. Everyone just assumed, oh, it's an add-on for the Wii because the name Wii U, that sort of thing.
I think the only time I actually believed it was a new console during that press conference 5 years ago was when Jeff Keighley actually came on afterwards and said, "It is a new console. We've actually played it. It's pretty cool." I was like, okay, so it is a console, not just a controller add-on.
Yeah, I mean, I was working at GameStop at the time. And I can't tell you how many people came in asking if they could buy the Wii U tablet controller for their Wii. I'm like, that's not how it works.
Which, yeah, speaking of that, I'm really glad they decided to move away from that entire naming scheme. Because obviously, as you've pointed out, consumers were very confused between the two. But I also like that, at least for this video, they kind of clearly established the audience that they seem to be marketing to, and you clearly see the system and its controllers, and you have an idea of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Exactly, which is something that they failed at E3 2011. As good as that, as fun as that press conference was, they failed at that basic thing, and they absolutely nailed it this time. So hopefully that means better things in terms of sales for the Nintendo Switch.
I will say I'm kind of not sold on the name Switch. I kind of liked the NX. Like I still just out of habit call it the NX. But
I thought it was kind of weird initially too, but I mean it's very descriptive of what it does.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it switches.
So yeah, it definitely makes sense in that regard.
Yeah, there was a guy that I work with, and I told him about it, and he said, "Well, where's the video?" And it's like, "Well, look up Nintendo Switch." And as soon as I said that, he looked at me. He's like, "The Nintendo Switch?" It's like, "Yeah, I know. They need to fire the naming guy if they haven't fired him already."
Well, hey, it's just as descriptive as the GameCube. It's a cube and it plays games.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say, I was one of those people that was really entertained and interested in the concept of Microsoft's Xbox One before it became the Xbox One. Their concept of like a digital only platform, always connected to the internet. It's like they were trying something new. It may not, I wasn't specifically their target audience because I wasn't really, initially planning on buying one. I was going to wait and see how the console happened. And I was really impressed that for a really long time they were sticking to their guns. It's like, no, it's going to be, this is what we're doing with the system. We can't just redo it. And then they ended up redoing it and making it the console that's out now. And I was actually a little bummed because I kind of want to see people, change up gaming a little bit. And I think that's all Nintendo kind of does these days. So, I'm very curious about it. But I'm also very apprehensive because I bought a Wii U. And I don't have a lot of physical games for it.
Well, I think the big difference between Nintendo and Microsoft in how they and how they want to change things. Nintendo more or less wants to change in how you sort of play the game, whereas Microsoft, when they wanted to come out with the Xbox One, the original version that they had, it seemed like they wanted to change how you owned it, and it seemed like that was the big sticking point for people.
Yeah, that was like I get a lot of the criticisms behind the because at the time I had really unreliable internet, so it's like I can see the being upset if it has to connect every 24 hours, you lose access to all of your games. That's a lot of that was I could see where it would rub people the wrong way. But I was really impressed with Microsoft. It's like because for a while they're like, no, this is how we're gonna change things, and this is our vision. And I was really impressed with that because, it may not have been, where I would have taken gaming, but they had an idea and they were running with it, and it was different. And I think, I was actually really disappointed when the report came out. It's like, oh yes, the Xbox One is basically the same as the 360 or the PS3 or the Xbox or the PS4 or any of that. It's like I was actually a little disappointed at that. So,
well, it's an interesting idea, and it's something that's probably where console gaming is, where all game is going to eventually go, or it's going to be all digital. But it didn't feel like it was the right time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was probably a little ahead of its time. It's very much like a Sega console. Sega consoles were very ahead for their time with, Sega always, they backed online gaming instead of DVD play for the Dreamcast, and nowadays online gaming is standard.
Oh heck, they had online gaming all the way back with the wasn't it the Genesis?
The Genesis and SNES had online gaming through the X-Band service.
And the Saturn hooked up to a modem too.
Yeah, the Saturn had a NetLink. I think the Saturn was the first one to have a dedicated first party.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. The Genesis had the Sega Channel, which was which was theirs as well. So yeah. So.
Although
but we never got the online version of the Super Nintendo. That stayed primarily in Japan.
Yeah. I mean, I actually looked into the price for Sega Channel when it came out, and it was like $100 a month. And like my dad looked at me, he's like, I love you, but I don't love you that much. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I think in a way with the Wii U, Nintendo sort of pulled a Sega. They have this interesting, different idea, and they decide to follow it, but then they don't really know what to do with it. And the impression I've always taken from the Wii U is that they didn't have a clear idea of what their next system wanted to be, and they looked at the DS and the 3DS and saw how successful that was, and they wanted to find a way to replicate that in a console.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I really feel like the
it's
NX
not the same thing.
/Switch is what they wanted to do with the Wii U. They weren't.
The hardware wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels like Wii U 2.0, but with much better marketing and ideas.
Well, it's something I was sort of thinking about after, and I think I even brought it up to my coworker after showing him the video, was that the Wii U felt, in retrospect, the Wii U feels safe for what Nintendo was doing, because it was something that they had done. It's something they had done before, though just in the handheld market. It tried to take a couple baby steps out, but it didn't really. It may not have done enough to really catch people's eyes. Maybe catch people's eye. Whereas this actually looks like they're putting themselves out there, and it looks like something that could draw in those people that left after the Wii, and they're going to look at it and be like, "Ooh, this is interesting," and hey, it looks like it's a tablet that I could actually hook up to my TV. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, in a way, they sort of have the same bravado that they did when they revealed the Wii, as in, it's something new and different and look at us and how we're changing gaming again.
Yeah. That's one thing that it always grates on me. It's like everyone's like, I want Nintendo to make a super power console to compete with everything else. Like, no, I want Nintendo to keep doing new weird stuff, because then, you get new and weird interesting things.
Well, if you want super powered stuff, just get a PC. That's what I did.
That's my argument. It's like if graphics, frame rate, if those are the two things you care about, then the console industry is really not for you. Like, the amount of money you can spend on a console, you can get a decent PC that'll have a much longer lifespan.
And you can keep adding on to that PC to hopefully give it a little extra lifespan.
It's like, console gaming for me was always experiences that you couldn't get on PC. Like, I always liked the arcade games that never really, like, I remember gaming on like a 486 PC. Like, my first PC was actually Commodore 64. So it's like I remember a lot of the old games, but like the console games were games you couldn't get on PC, and the PC games were games you wouldn't get on console. Like, there was two very different ecosystems.
Yeah.
So like I liked that kind of reason to play on both. But it's like, if I want to pick up the newest Assassin's Creed game, and obviously the PC version of it is better because it has unclocked frame rate, or it supports up to 4K gaming or something like that. It's like, if I'm going to spend the $60 on it, I might as well get the PC version when it has all of these available features that I can take advantage of right out of the box.
Well, let's be honest. For an Assassin's Creed game, you don't really want to buy it at launch. You want to wait about a month or two after Ubisoft's finally fixed all those bugs.
It was just the first AAA game that came to mind. It's like I was going to say, Batman. Oh no, we don't want to do it. No.
No, WB is going to pull that.
Yeah. But like I don't have a top of the line PC. Like, my PC is more geared for like recording gameplay and editing, but it's strong enough to where I can play games at decent resolutions with decent frame rate. So it's like, I could get the game for like $20 on Steam on sale, or I could pick it up for $60 as a physical copy on a console. Part of me, like, I really want the physical copy, but part of me is like, $20 is $20. So it's an interesting argument. I've gotten into a lot of positive conversations, and then a lot of like just flat out name calling on the internet about the whole PC versus console debate. So,
well, here's another question: if it's a physical game that you're just gonna resell afterwards, would you be able to make up make more than the $40 difference between the $60 physical purchase and the $20 digital purchase?
I would say it would depend on the consumer. Like, me personally, I can't. The last time I sold or traded in a game was the Soul Calibur adventure game on the Wii, the one where you could play as either Ivy or Siegfried or Lloyd Irving from Tales of Symphonia. It was a terrible game, but that was the last time I traded in a game. But like, my circle of friends, we would, if like, one of my best friends, he trades in games all the time, and he's very savvy about it. Like, he'll either sell it online when he knows the price is fairly reasonable, or if he takes it into a place like GameStop, he waits until there's a promotion that makes it worth trading in for something else. So he recoups a lot of his costs that way, but he's not the average consumer.
Yeah, I had no idea that people really resell their games. I mean, that kind of sounds like heresy to me, but then again, we did talk about us being hoarders, so I guess that's in line with our goals.
One of the last times I traded in a game before the Soul Calibur game, like, I remember trading in my copy of Valkyrie Profile on the PS1. I traded it into an EB Games at the time, And I remember standing in line with my dad, and I'm trading it in for store credit towards another game, and the guy's like, this game cost like this much money, you're going to get this much back in store credit to apply toward another game. Like, it's a really good game. Are you sure you want to trade it in? I'm like, yes, totally. And my dad looks at me and is like, are you positive? And it was one of those parent moments where, like, he knew the answer. Like, the answer being, you shouldn't trade this in, you're kind of an idiot for trading this in, please don't trade this in, but I'm going to let you make the mistake anyway. And he let me make the mistake, and I regret that wholeheartedly, because I ended up having to rebuy it years later for like 3 times the cost.
Oh.
Like, oh. It hurt.
Gracie, come here.
It hurt so much. So... And then when he found out that I repurchased it, he just kind of looked at me. He's like, "I didn't tell you, but I told you so." So.
Wow.
So speaking of the Switch, what is it that we want to see on it?
Well, actually, first thing was, did they ever confirm or deny if there was going to be a touchscreen for this thing?
I did read today that there's supposed to be a multi-touch display on it.
There's talk about it from people who have been accurate with all of their predictions and comments so far, but Nintendo has not confirmed or denied. Like, Nintendo is basically media silent on it. They're like, we're going to talk about it in January, and everything else at this point is back to rumors and speculation.
Yeah.
So... Like, I honestly don't think I'd care one way or another if it had a touchscreen. Because, like, with the number of control options that they're giving, it seems almost superfluous to me. But, like, I can see why some people would want a touchscreen depending on the games available.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, and whether or not it's really necessary. Because when you're using it at home, if you want to play it on the TV, it has to be in the dock, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be touching it then; you'd only be able to touch it on the go. Which I don't know if you get much more utility from being able to touch it in a.
Well, I think one of the big reasons why I asked about it is because there were a number of people that were asking if there were going to be like, they already said there was going to be no physical backwards compatibility, but for like digital backwards compatibility for things like Wii U games that used the gamepad touchscreen a lot, or 3DS games or DS games where that again use the touchscreen a lot.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I don't know how they're going to do the DS line, because it doesn't function like the Wii U does, where you have the tablet as well as the TV running concurrently. It looks like if you have it in TV mode, it's in the dock, and if you have it out of the dock, it's running in tablet mode, and it doesn't seem to do both. So unless the tablet can simulate both screens of like a DS, I don't know how they're going to do that. Unless they're going to just rework games to not require the touch screen or the second screen compatibility at all, which seems kind of like it's defeating the purpose of having DS games on the system.
True.
So and that's the thing, is like there's so many questions about it at the moment that we really just wish Nintendo would answer.
Yeah, there were a couple of friends that were thinking maybe they'd be able to maybe they would be able to play some of their games through backwards compatibility or something like that. And I sort of warned them, is like, that's probably not going to happen with things that required a second screen, because the second screen is pretty much the TV, and the first screen is going to be in the dock while you're playing on the TV.
Yeah.
And part of that might be them just wanting to distance themselves from it.
Yeah.
Starting completely new, which, speaking of virtual console and stuff like that, I wanted this for the Wii U as well, and I know it's not exactly a simple undertaking, but I hope they're able to really step up their game in that regard within the first few months of launching it, because it just seems like they're really not utilizing it as well as they could. And for having it been out since the Wii, you'd really think they'd have a better understanding of what to do with it by now.
Well, I think part of that was they were trying to do something different between how they released or re-released games with the Wii Virtual Console versus how they released games on the Wii U's Virtual Console, and it seemed like it was more ROM dumps with the Wii, whereas they were actually putting some thought into how they were releasing it with the Wii U, and yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say on that.
I mean, I know the Wii Virtual Console was more robust, because I want to say there was actually a comment early on from Sega saying that they weren't going to be porting too many Virtual Console titles to the Wii U. So, like, the Sega selection of Virtual Console title games is actually really lackluster compared to the Wii. So,
well, even for Nintendo itself, I mean, when you think about their entire library, it's pretty underwhelming. And, you know, for the Wii U, they have Wii games on there, but they don't have GameCube games, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Wait, they never had GameCube games on it?
No.
Really?
So, I mean, obviously when you launch a new console, you don't want your older games to be the spotlight, but since it's basically a part of gaming culture now, I hope they're able to find a way to really utilize their entire library.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the Switch doesn't have the dual screen capability, then I think any of the backwards compatibility that they do, it's definitely going to be digital. Because that is one of the few things they have confirmed, is that there's not going to be any like physical, like, because there's not an optical drive for like Wii U discs.
Right.
But if they do re-release games, they're going to have to be games that are going to be retooled to not rely on the second screen. So
exactly.
But I can almost see them doing that just to see if they could get more sales from it, because depending on what the initial install base is of the Switch, say, you know, the Switch sells, you know, X number of hundreds of thousands of units in, you know, a set time frame that shows that it has a better growth rate than the Wii U did, they might go back and say, oh, well, Hyrule Warriors, we can retool that one to be, you know, a Switch title, because it may not need this or that, or like Xenoblade Chronicles X, they might find a way to retool that to where it doesn't need the second screen. So, I mean, it's Nintendo. I can see them finding a way to do it if they really want to. It's just are they really going to want to?
Yeah,
well, I would
resource allocation. I mean,
yeah, is the amount of cost to profit, you know, worth it for them? So,
well, I'd hope there'd be more than a few 100,000 sold when this thing launched. Because if it only sold a few 100,000 and launched, that's not a good launch for them.
Well, true. I know there's probably
I know you're just throwing a number out there.
There's a metric that they would use to be like, okay, it's obviously, you know, this much more successful, you know, on a numerical scale than the Wii U, which I think.
And trust me, that's not going to be hard.
Hopefully,
was it 13 million sold? I remember somebody yelled at me for saying Nintendo lost money on the Wii U, and I was thinking, like, have you seen the sales numbers?
Yeah, I mean, the Dreamcast sold more for the bulk of the Dream. Like, if you look at the lifespan of both consoles, it's like the Dreamcast sold more up until, like, I want to say just recently for the Wii U. Like, it was probably earlier this year. It may have been actually earlier than that. Like, I remember reading an article of the Wii U has finally reached Dreamcast sales numbers. I'm like, oh, that's...
Well, how long were they actually making the Dreamcast before they decided to go third party?
I want to say it was 2 years?
Yeah, it was about 2 years.
Oh, wow, I'm looking
at
at it.
in 99, and then they discontinued it in, like, 2001.
It was launched in Japan November '98, came a year later to North America and Europe, and discontinued March 2001.
So, yeah.
Sold 9 million units total.
Yeah. It's like...
And it's...
Yeah. That's
4 years, going on 5 for the Wii U, and it's barely 4 million above that.
But I mean, that's also going to be the biggest thing, because a lot of people were talking about during the Switch releases, like, oh, look at all the third-party developers that are signing on for the working on the console. It's like a lot of those third-party developers were also signed on for the Wii. Like, if you go back and look at the original infograph that they used for the Wii U, rather, excuse me. Like, oh, a lot of the same companies are there, and a lot of them did not actually support the Wii U. Like, they brought maybe 1 or 2 games and then just completely dropped support for it because they saw that the install base for the console was too low.
Or they didn't even bring any games at all.
Yeah.
Like BioShock. They said that they were going to try to bring BioShock in, and they never did that.
Yeah. Because that's my biggest fear is we've got all these people saying, oh yeah, the Switch is going to be great, it's going to be great, it's going to be great, and then I'm worried that if it doesn't sell well enough, it's just going to be a repeat of the Wii U. It's like, oh, well, it's not selling enough, and so that we're going to pull out, and it's going to rely solely on first-party titles again.
Yeah,
Which some of that I feel like is sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy too, because third-party releases, if you release on the Xbox One and PS4 and then wait 9 months and release the same thing on the Wii U, it's probably not going to sell very well. And then you pull support after that because it failed.
Yeah.
But you set it up to fail.
And that was one of the problems with I want to say Mass Effect. There was like the Wii U version of Mass Effect came out right before a re-release.
The trilogy.
Yeah. And it's like, and with all of the DLC and everything, it's like, and the Wii U version doesn't get anything for it. So it's like, you are intentionally putting out an inferior product on the Wii U to set up for failure so you can say later, well, it didn't sell well enough, so we're not going to bother. It's like, that's sketchy to me. But
yeah.
But looking at some of these names, I mean, I hope that Bethesda follows through. I mean, they say they're going to do it. Yeah. I hope they follow through. I hope that that Square Enix follows through. I see Activision's name there. I hope that also means Blizzard, and both those guys come through.
I mean, one of the strategies that I heard that I think would be really interesting, but it's also really risky, is that if the Switch goes on to completely replace the Wii U and the 3DS, like they completely they finish up all the 3DS games that are in development, and then they shift focus to the Switch because it is also portable. That they get a lot of the 3DS developers that are used to working on not AAA style games, but the handheld quality games. Like, there are a lot of really good games on the DS that don't cost a ton to make and bring in a decent amount of sales because the install base is high enough. And a lot of people were saying, well, what if that happens with the Switch? Like, you get people shifting over to the Switch for like this type of, like, you're not focusing on the Switch as a AAA machine, but as a more general experience, which I think is kind of what they tried to do with the Wii U, but I think it failed because people still looked at it as a console. But I think if you can market it, oh, well, no, the Switch is also a handheld, so, you can get the developers who do things like Dragon Quest VII just came out on the 3DS, and it sold amazingly well. And like the Fire Emblem games on the DS sold really well, and like you can get some good selling games that you don't have to put as much money and resources into that still look and play fun, but that's a really risky business strategy. And I like it on paper, but I look at it like I don't know how you could actually get that to work without taking a ridiculous amount of risks.
Well, I feel like there's enough audience for both systems, for the Switch and the 3DS. And while the Switch is obviously portable, I know it's sort of a oxymoron, but it's a portable console. Whereas I think of the 3DS as just strictly a portable, and I still think it would be smart for them to keep development on both of them just for the sake of having different experiences. And you have different audiences too.
Yeah. I just worry that it'll end up cannibalizing both audiences if they don't shift at some point.
Actually, as soon as you said that, I thought of the PS3 and 4 and the Vita, where specifically for us, we have a Vita, but we have like 4 games on it because basically everything ever is on the PS3 or the PS4. So there's no reason to buy the system.
Yeah.
And I don't see that happening here.
Well, it's also because you got 2 different styles of gameplay. I mean, on the 3DS, you have the regular touch control, the regular standard Nintendo controls, but then you also have the touch screen that you can do additional stuff on, whereas this doesn't look like you can do that unless of course it's like you're taking the console portable or something like that. But again, we're not really sure that would work really well for this sort of thing.
Yeah. It really all depends on how people develop for it, because I remember when the DS came out, everyone said, oh, it's just a gimmick. A lot of developers like, oh, we're not going to develop for it. We'll have something extra for it. Like one of the big comments when Chrono Trigger came out on the DS was that the second screen really is superfluous. Like you don't need it because it was designed for one screen, and all the stuff added to it was just extras. But a lot of people were saying, oh, this is what a lot of DS games are like, and then people pointed out DS games that actually took advantage of both screens in unique and interesting ways to counter that argument. But it's one of the arguments of, if the developers decide, well, they don't really need the second screen, they just want to make a one-screen experience, they can just add something superfluous. But I think that's not... I think the 3DS has been around long enough to where that's not the mindset of the developers now. Like, the people who are actually developing for the 3DS are like, we have these 2 screens, let's take advantage of them, let's use them. Which, depending on how the Switch plays out, how it actually functions, I can see a lot of developers going, well, we don't necessarily need the second screen, so we can develop a mobile game for it. Or... no, we would rather have the 2 screens. Let's stick to the 3DS. So,
well, it also helps that the 3DS's predecessor became the second highest selling console of all time.
Yeah.
Sitting right behind the PS2.
Yeah.
It was fun.
So it kind of forced people to learn how to do that if they wanted to get a game on, if they wanted to get in on that action.
But it's going to be interesting. I'm just very curious to see how it goes from here on out. So
I'm really hoping they have a diverse lineup at launch, or at least more to show in January for us to get excited about. And in terms of an actual launch, I've been trying to think of what games I would like to see, and I think the one that stuck out to me the most, that I feel like would be a brilliant idea for them at this point, would be a new Metroid game. Because I think there are a lot of people who still feel burned from Other M and now Federation Force, and I think that would be an excellent way to attract those gamers back to the system while also showcasing the hardware.
Yeah. Well, I think I would hope Nintendo actually listen to the backlash from Federation Force reveal at E3. Was it 15? Was E3 15? Was that when it when they debuted?
I think so.
I thought it was 15.
Yeah. So E3 2015 when Federation Force debuted and there was that major backlash to it all. You would hope they actually they would have listened to that and hopefully learn and create something that would, I guess, in a way, appease that particular audience.
Well, I don't know. See, my feelings on that issue are kind of complicated because, on the one hand, I feel like it's their IP and they can do whatever the hell they want with it. And on the other hand, you do constantly have to appeal to your fans to succeed at business. Yeah. But going as far as starting petitions to cancel games and stuff like that, I just feel is counterproductive.
Yeah.
And in a way, and this harkens back to what I have said to certain people at the old website, if you want to think about censorship, that is a form of censorship.
Yeah. Like,
well, I remember
something
having
shouldn't exist because you don't like it. That's the...
I remember having a bit of an argument about it with Josh Spear, where we were talking about it, and I remember bringing up like the Story of Seasons series, and saying that this series has done a number of spin-offs, and some of them have been good, some of them have been bad, and I didn't think much about it. And then he brought up that but there's been like 3 or 4 times more of those games than there have been Metroid games. So when they get a game, it seemed like it was when they get a game, it was something that was supposed to be special to them. And this game sort of ruined it when they saw it, and they're like, well, what's going on here? This doesn't make sense to us. After Other M, they sort of felt that they were hoping that Nintendo would go back to something that would hopefully not ruin the Samus character.
Yeah.
Because I think that was the big thing from Other M, was just the story part of it.
And I can see that viewpoint too, because for certain franchises like Metroid, you have a game once every, I'd have to look, but just spitballing 5 or 6 years. So when it's a new release, you want it to be something that's exemplary, and it's certainly frustrating when it's not what you're expecting. But I don't know, the backlash that it received and Paper Mario Color Splash as well just confuses me. It starts with dislike and goes all the way up to just outright hatred, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. These are people who profess to love the series, but then go out of their way to make sure certain entries are destroyed. Which I guess is some form of respecting the source material, but...
because it's not what they viewed as an entry for this, as a good entry for the series.
Yeah. It goes back to the Sonic series and how people, it's like you have a paradox of you want the original games, but you want new games because you don't want just rehashes of the same game. So
you want the adventure games, but you want the adventure games, not the Sonic only games. I actually got into an argument with someone about that on the Project Sonic trailer.
It's like that was actually one of the big things about the whole Shining series thing, was there was a lot of arguments between a lot of the North American fans and a lot of the Japanese development team. It's like, we want a lot of the classic games, and it's like we don't like the direction that the series is taking, but we still want to be able to play the games. And they like, well, you don't like the games, you don't buy the games, so we're not bringing you the games. It's like, well, we didn't like these games because of X reason, but like, give us a chance, we might like some of the newer games. But that was the paradox that we ran into. It's like, we like the old games, we're not getting the old games anymore because it's a brand new studio, but we still wanted to have the chance to try the new games, and we were not given that chance. So I think that's a lot of the problem with a lot of the fandoms now. It's like specifically the Paper Mario games. The biggest problem I heard was Color Splash isn't Thousand Year Door.
Exactly, which I actually just finished playing Thousand Year Door, and I definitely enjoyed my time with it, but I also wouldn't want Color Splash to be Thousand Year Door 2.0. I mean, I don't want the same game over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'd like to try something new with this, this IP. I get some people are saying like it goes too far away in one direction, or I get some of the criticisms, but I like you, I don't understand I am a Paper Mario fan. I'm a diehard fan. I don't want this game to exist. Like, then what?
Yeah.
It's like,
They should have went with like a Paper Mario Sunshine sort of thing, where instead of water, it was just paint.
That's, again, I can make so many parallels with the Shining series, because the Shining series was more than one type of game. You had the Shining Force games, which were tactical, and then you had other spin-off games that were like either dungeon crawlers or Zelda clones or things like that. But traditionally, the Shining Force games were always tactical. And then one of the reasons why the fans disliked it is because they brought out a Shining Force game that wasn't a tactical game. It was a dungeon crawler, or not a dungeon, it was a loot-based game, kind of like Diablo. And that was what rubbed fans the wrong way. It's like, we don't care if you make different games, just don't, like, you had a system to let fans know what type of game that they were getting into. And you kind of messed that up. So it's like, if you want to take the Shining series in a completely different direction, that's great. Just, Shining Force was always the tactical, so we knew what to expect. When you give us a Shining Force game that's not tactical, that's when we get a little confused. It's like, name it something else, because it's not like there were a shortage of other Shining games that were not Shining Force. And I think if they'd done that with like the Paper Mario games, like you had, a spin-off to the Paper Mario games that didn't have to be the RPGs like Thousand Year Door, but had similar mechanics. Like, I loved Super Paper Mario. I thought that was awesome, and it's a spin-off.
Oh, it's a good game.
Some, it has some connections to the other paper games, but it was its own thing. Like, that kind of spin-off was great.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of the problem, is just that people got kind of hung up on the naming scheme, which, granted, with the paper games, they didn't have as much of a naming scheme as, say, the Shining series. So I think that was what a lot of the fans were really upset about. It's like, we want Paper Mario, and we get our hopes up, and when we find out that it's not the RPG, they got disgruntled. But if Nintendo just come out, it's like, oh yes, we've got Paper Mario action-adventure platformer in the title, people are going to be like, oh, okay, that's different. I think that would have diffused a lot of the anger just right off the bat. But
I think that could help, and I definitely understand what you're saying. But I also wonder how far you can successfully take that without it becoming convoluted, because if you take a series and you're going to have a spin-off or some sort of side story to it, and you have to, it seems like you'd have to constantly fragment it.
Oh yeah, that's the ultimate problem with it, is like, there's only so far they would be able to expand the series into different realms before it got complicated.
Yeah.
Again, the Shining series, like, Shining Force was the only consistent thing for a while. Every other game was something completely different. Like, you had Shining Soul, Shining the Holy Ark, Shining Wisdom, and all of those were very different games. So, and they didn't even really have sequels of those games, except for, I think, Shining Soul 2. Both of those were on the Game Boy Advance, and that was the only type of sequel that you had. So it's like with Paper Mario, I could see them having a hard time because you have the RPG ones, then you have like the Super Paper Mario, and then you have the sticker star ones where it's kind of an RPG, but it's kind of not really. I could see where they would be limited with their ability to expand on that. So yeah, the after a while it would get very fragmented and very confusing. It'd be almost as confusing as the plotline to Kingdom Hearts. And I love Kingdom Hearts, and I'm sitting here. I need a flow chart for that series.
Wait. So, Paper Mario is all going to revolve around Sora?
Yes. What we're finding out is Mickey is really the one who turned Mario into a two-dimensional creature, and it was to protect him from the Heartless, and Bowser is secretly working with, I forget the villain's name at this point, because even the villain got confusing. I forget who the actual villain is now. So, yeah,
No, Bowser's actually working for, like, Ansem of the Wise to keep Mario occupied so that he doesn't have to worry about the Heartless.
Illuminati conspiracy confirmed. That's Half-Life 3 is also going to be tying into it somehow. Expect an announcement from Gabe Newell at E3 2020 for that. So. Oh, on that note, should we go ahead and call it an end? Because we've got about 2.5 hours of audio for the podcast.
One final thing. What do we expect from the Nintendo Switch? The one basic thing I need to see from it is everything that the controller schemes in the console was doing. I don't need to see the games that they showed on there. It would be nice to see a Mario Kart game. It would be nice to see a Super Mario game. It would be nice to see Elder Scrolls. It would be nice to see some sports games come back to it. It would be nice to see some sort of Splatoon thing come to it. But I just need to see the console that was shown in the video.
My expectation is about the same. As like I need to see it be able to function as a console and as a portable. Like it's going to need to have decent battery life. It's going to need, to function as a console. It's going to need to be able to compete with other console-esque titles. That's really the only thing that I'm looking for. It's like, can it stand on its own compared to other consoles? Does it have the battery life to function as a handheld? Is it what Nintendo is trying to bill it as?
And can it literally stand on its own?
It has the kickstand. It can.
Well, it's not really standing. It's kind of reclining.
It's leaning.
Yeah.
Well, Nintendo's trying to capture, some of the old Sega attitude. It's gonna just kind of lean against a wall with a leather jacket and some glasses, and it's gonna have all of Sonic's old attitude that Sonic has seemed to have lost in recent years.
It's the 1990s all rolled up into one console?
Yes. The console wars are coming back in force.
Oh, God.
Nintendo does what Sega don't. I know that's not how that phrase went. Anyway. But yeah, that's all I think I need to see from the Switch is is it going to be able to do what they're billing it as a console and a portable?
I think for me, I agree with all of that. I definitely want to see more of the controller options and when you can use those and how all of that really functions. And I think one thing I really want to see too is them reaching out to the hardcore gamers more. So maybe bringing back one of their franchises that gamers haven't seen in a while. I mean, particularly, I think, in an ideal dream world, I guess, having F-Zero as a launch title would be brilliant. But just having a nice balance of new content, new IPs, and bringing back stuff that we haven't seen in a decade or so.
A good Metroid game?
Yes, exactly.
As for me, I don't... Obviously all that stuff, yes, but the one thing that really stood out to me from their reveal was their. I want to see a bunch of local multiplayer. Like, I feel all the other consoles don't offer that at all. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I like sitting on the couch with my friends and playing a game, and not every single person having to have their own console to play a multiplayer game.
Or that all of your friends exist only online.
Having all your friends online at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I hope that that's something that actually comes through.
Yeah, I wonder how many people can actually play when it's in the charging dock on the TV. Would it be limited there, or
If the controller that they showed in the reveal is any indication, it had 4 lights on the main dog-looking controller. I don't know if you've seen the photoshops of the controller being turned into an adorable little puppy, but it had along the center section 4 lights, and only one set was active. So it looks like it would be able to support 4.
Okay.
4 of that type of controller. I don't know if there's any other type of controller that might have a different, way of connecting. But it seems like if they're using wireless controllers for all of these, it looks like, I would imagine, 4 of a combination of controller types, but only 4 total.
okay?
So yeah, I mean,
Well,
that seems like, a good wish list for the Switch. I guess, again, we'll have to wait until January to find out, but
Is that when the big detailed presentation is going to be?
I want to say January 17th.
It's January 12th.
12th, okay.
Oh, it's going to be on my brother's birthday.
Happy birthday! You get to learn about the Nintendo.
It's going to be better than my birthday. Happy birthday! It's election day.
Oh. My deepest sympathies. I've already gone out and voted. We had early voting in my state, so I've already done that. So
You could do that. I've just been lazy.
I'm actually taking election day off from work, so I'm gonna go and do that in the morning. I mean, it's. And remember, election day, according to Donald Trump, is November 28th.
Exactly.
yep. So your birthday is November 28th, is what you're telling us.
No.